Every relationship we build leaves a deep imprint on the brain, shaping how we think, feel, and respond to the world around us. The chemistry of connection runs deeper than emotions. It affects our brain's physical wiring and the balance of its neurochemicals. When two people share love, kindness, and emotional safety, the brain releases powerful neurotransmitters like dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. These chemicals not only make us feel good in the moment, but also strengthen the brain's ability to focus, remember, and regulate mood. Love, trust, and respect create biological nourishment for the mind. On the other hand, constant stress, criticism, and emotional neglect flood the brain with cortisol and adrenaline, which damage neural pathways over time. Chronic emotional tension can shrink the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for learning and memory, and weaken the prefrontal cortex, which controls decision-making and empathy. This is why toxic relationships feel mentally exhausting and emotionally confusing. They literally change how the brain functions. A healthy relationship begins with awareness. Every word spoken, every gesture made, sends a message to the other person's nervous system. Positive interactions signal safety, encouraging calm and connection, while negative or harsh ones activate the amygdala, the brain's fear center, triggering defensiveness and anxiety. When a partner feels emotionally unsafe, their brain moves into survival mode, prioritizing protection over connection. But when they feel secure and valued, the prefrontal cortex activates, allowing for understanding, trust, and emotional growth. Knowing this helps us realize that our behavior doesn't just affect our partner's feelings, it directly influences how their brain operates in the relationship. This awareness turns love into an intentional act of brain care. Building a brain-healthy relationship requires conscious daily choices. It means choosing calm over chaos, patience over reaction, and empathy over ego. Something as simple as maintaining eye contact, speaking softly, or offering a genuine compliment can stimulate oxytocin release, creating warmth and emotional safety. Even small gestures like holding hands or sharing laughter strengthen neural connections associated with happiness and bonding. These little moments accumulate, gradually forming a protective layer of emotional resilience in the brain. A relationship filled with positivity doesn't happen by chance. It's the result of deliberate habits that reinforce mutual respect and compassion. Each kind act becomes a tiny repair to the brain's stress systems, helping both partners feel mentally grounded and emotionally balanced. In contrast, negative patterns, like blame, avoidance, or constant arguing, create a different neurological pattern. When conflict becomes habitual, the brain associates the relationship with stress instead of comfort. This association triggers automatic defensive responses, making open communication harder with time. The good news is that the brain is plastic. It can always change. By consistently practicing empathy, forgiveness, and appreciation, partners can literally rewire their brains to respond to each other with calm instead of fear. Healing begins the moment both people decide to be more aware of how their words and actions shape each other's mental state. When relationships become brain healthy, both partners benefit in every area of life. Emotional stability improves focus, creativity, and decision making. Stress levels drop, leading to better sleep and stronger immunity. Even the body's physical health responds positively because emotional harmony reduces inflammation and heart strain. Relationships that nurture the brain also nurture the soul. They become a safe space where vulnerability is met with care and where growth replaces judgment. The truth is, love isn't only an emotion. It's a biological partnership where two nervous systems learn to regulate each other. When both people commit to speaking with kindness, resolving conflict gently, and protecting each other's peace, they build not just a connection, but a sanctuary for the mind. A brain-healthy relationship is, in essence, a daily practice of emotional mindfulness, where love becomes a force of healing rather than harm. The way we communicate within a relationship shapes not only emotional connection, but also brain chemistry and long-term mental health. Every conversation, tone of voice, and facial expression becomes a signal that the brain interprets as either safe or threatening. When communication is respectful, calm, and empathetic, it activates the brain's reward centers, releasing feel-good chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine. These neurochemicals reinforce trust, closeness, and a sense of belonging. The brain begins to associate the relationship with comfort, making it easier to stay open, connected, and emotionally balanced. But when communication is filled with criticism, sarcasm, or cold silence, it triggers the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, causing a stress response that releases cortisol and adrenaline. These stress hormones make the body tense, the heart race, and the mind defensive. Over time, repeated negative communication rewires the brain to expect conflict instead of connection, creating emotional distance and eroding trust in a brain-healthy relationship. Communication functions like medicine. It soothes stress, builds understanding, and repairs emotional wounds. Speaking gently and listening with intention allows both partners to feel seen and valued, which keeps their nervous systems in balance. The brain thrives on consistency and safety, and kind communication offers both. When you use words that acknowledge your partner's feelings, such as "I understand how that must feel," or "I hear you," it sends powerful messages of validation that calm the mind. This validation reduces anxiety, encourages openness, and makes the brain release oxytocin, deepening emotional bonding. The more frequently this type of positive exchange occurs, the stronger the neurological connection between both partners becomes. Effective communication also depends on timing and tone. When emotions run high, the brain's rational center, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down, while the emotional center takes over. Trying to argue or prove a point in such moments only deepens misunderstanding. A brain-smart approach means pausing when tempers rise, taking deep breaths, and returning to the discussion when both partners feel calm. This simple act of regulation prevents impulsive reactions that can damage the bond. It also teaches the brain that conflict does not have to be threatening. With practice, couples begin to associate disagreements with problem-solving instead of fear, allowing communication to become a pathway for growth rather than destruction. Listening plays an equally vital role. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. But brain-healthy communication requires deep listening, an active, mindful process where one partner gives full attention, maintains eye contact, and avoids interrupting. This type of listening activates mirror neurons in the brain, which help create empathy by allowing one person to feel what the other is feeling. When someone truly feels heard, their brain releases calming chemicals that promote safety and connection. In contrast, being ignored or dismissed has the opposite effect, triggering emotional pain similar to physical injury. That is why dismissive or distracted communication can be more damaging than open conflict. It tells the brain that the relationship is unsafe. Non-verbal communication also shapes the brain's response. Gentle touch, a warm smile, or an understanding nod can often convey reassurance more effectively than words. The human brain is wired to pick up on subtle cues like tone, posture, and facial expression. When these cues align with compassion, they strengthen the emotional circuitry between two people. When they contradict words, for example, saying "I'm fine," with irritation, they create confusion in the brain, leading to mistrust and emotional disconnection. Consistency between words and actions is essential for keeping the brain's perception of safety intact over time. Healthy communication becomes a habit that rewires the relationship for long-term peace. The brain learns to associate your partner's presence with security and understanding rather than anxiety. Conversations begin to feel lighter, conflicts resolve faster, and emotional intimacy deepens. Communication that heals the brain doesn't require perfect words. It requires conscious intention, empathy, and the willingness to connect. When partners make the effort to speak calmly, listen deeply, and respond with care, their relationship becomes a source of psychological stability and inner peace. The brain thrives in environments where love and language coexist with respect. Turning communication into the most powerful medicine for lasting connection. Empathy is one of the most powerful forces in any relationship because it bridges emotional gaps and creates genuine understanding between two minds. It is not just a moral or emotional skill, but a biological process that connects one brain to another. When you show empathy, your brain activates mirror neurons, specialized cells that allow you to sense and reflect what another person is feeling. This process is known as neural resonance, where your brain literally mirrors the emotional state of your partner. It helps you tune into their experiences, feel their joy, or sense their pain, creating a shared emotional rhythm that builds trust and safety. Without empathy, communication becomes mechanical, and relationships lose their warmth and depth. When empathy is present, both individuals feel seen, understood, and valued, allowing their brains to relax and open up to deeper connection. True empathy requires more than listening to words. It involves listening to emotions. When your partner speaks, they are often expressing feelings that go beyond what they say aloud. By paying attention to their tone, expressions, and energy, you can sense what their heart is trying to communicate. When you respond with understanding rather than judgment, it signals safety to their nervous system. This sense of emotional safety calms the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and activates the prefrontal cortex, which governs rational thinking and compassion. This is why when someone feels genuinely understood, their entire body relaxes. Their breathing slows, their muscles release tension, and their mind opens to connection. The experience of being understood is healing at a neurological level. It tells the brain, you are not alone, you are safe. Empathy also strengthens relationships by improving emotional regulation. When one person becomes upset, the other's empathetic response helps stabilize the emotional environment. This emotional balance comes from the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone that enhances trust and reduces stress. Studies show that couples who practice empathy experience lower cortisol levels and greater relationship satisfaction. They are better able to resolve conflicts and recover from disagreements because empathy keeps the brain focused on understanding rather than winning. Instead of reacting defensively, empathetic partners pause, acknowledge each other's feelings, and work together toward a solution. This approach strengthens neural connections associated with cooperation, and love. Developing empathy takes practice and patience. It means learning to quiet your own inner dialogue so you can fully hear and feel another person's experience. When your partner is upset, resist the urge to correct or fix them immediately. Instead, say things like, "I can see how that would be frustrating," or "that must have hurt." Such statements validate their emotions and activate positive brain chemistry that builds emotional closeness. Over time, these small acts of empathy accumulate, creating a deep sense of emotional trust. The brain learns that this relationship is a safe place to express vulnerability without fear of judgment or rejection. That sense of safety forms the foundation for lasting intimacy. Empathy also involves humility, the willingness to admit that you might not fully understand someone else's perspective, but are open to learning. When you approach communication with curiosity rather than defensiveness, your brain stays calm and receptive. This openness allows both people to engage more authentically and prevents emotional disconnection. On the other hand, when empathy is missing, misunderstandings multiply, and the brain begins to associate the relationship with stress and emotional danger. Over time, this weakens the neural pathways that support love and trust. Empathy nurtures more than emotional health. It transforms how the brain processes relationships altogether. When two people empathize with each other regularly, their brains begin to synchronize during conversations, creating a sense of harmony and mutual understanding. This synchronization fosters cooperation, emotional balance, and long-term attachment. The more empathy you practice, the stronger and more resilient your bond becomes. It becomes easier to forgive, easier to communicate, and easier to love. Through empathy, two brains learn to move together not as opponents, but as partners, sharing the same rhythm of compassion and connection. Conflict is a natural part of every relationship, but the way it is handled determines whether it strengthens or weakens the emotional and neurological bond between two people. The brain responds to conflict as a potential threat, instantly activating the amygdala, which triggers the body's fight, flight, or freeze response. In this state, stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline surge, heart rate increases, and rational thinking shuts down. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and empathy, becomes less active, making it harder to communicate calmly or understand the other person's perspective. This is why heated arguments often spiral out of control, leading to words and actions that cause emotional harm. A brain-healthy relationship requires awareness of this process and a commitment to managing conflict in ways that protect the mind rather than overwhelm it. The first step in handling conflict wisely is recognizing when your brain is overloaded. When emotions rise, reasoning declines. Taking a break before responding gives the nervous system time to calm down and helps re-engage the prefrontal cortex. During this pause, deep breathing or mindfulness can lower cortisol levels and shift the brain from a defensive to a receptive state. Once calm, communication becomes clearer, softer, and more solution-focused. This practice of self-regulation allows both partners to express themselves without attacking or withdrawing, creating an environment where differences can be addressed without damaging relationships' foundation. The ability to pause is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of neurological intelligence. It means you're protecting the connection instead of feeding the chaos. When the brain feels safe, empathy can return and true problem solving can begin. In this state, couples can listen to each other with understanding rather than fear. They can discuss issues rationally, focusing on behavior instead of character. Phrases like "I felt hurt when" are far healthier than "you always," because they invite understanding instead of triggering defensiveness. When both people feel heard, the brain releases oxytocin and serotonin, restoring emotional balance and re-establishing connection. These brain chemicals help shift the focus from competition to cooperation, making it easier to resolve disagreements. This is why calm and compassionate communication during conflict doesn't just mend emotions. It biologically repairs the bond between partners. Conflict also provides an opportunity for growth. When two people face challenges together with respect and understanding, the brain learns to associate conflict with learning rather than danger. Over time, this rewires the neural pathways related to trust and resilience. Couples who resolve conflicts constructively develop stronger emotional regulation skills and greater patience. They understand that disagreement doesn't mean disconnection. It means two perspectives working toward harmony. This mindset creates a sense of partnership where problems become shared challenges rather than battles for power. A relationship that can survive conflict with compassion becomes more stable, mature, and emotionally intelligent, however. Unresolved conflict does the opposite. When arguments end with silence, resentment, or hostility, the brain records those experiences as emotional pain. Repeated exposure to this pain increases cortisol production, damages the hippocampus, and heightens anxiety. The relationship begins to feel unsafe, and both partners may become emotionally guarded or distant. Breaking this pattern requires intentional repair after conflict. A simple apology, an expression of appreciation, or a moment of vulnerability can reset the brain's emotional state and rebuild trust. Repairing after disagreement is like healing a wound. It prevents scars from forming in the relationship's emotional memory. The ultimate goal of handling conflict wisely is not to eliminate disagreements, but to transform them into moments of understanding and closeness. Every argument handled with calmness strengthens the brain's ability to manage stress and deepens emotional connection. With practice, the mind learns that love can survive tension and that communication can replace confrontation. This creates a resilient bond, grounded in mutual respect and emotional safety. When couples view conflict as a chance to learn, not to win, they turn emotional storms into opportunities for deeper love and trust. A brain-healthy relationship doesn't avoid conflict. It masters it, using every disagreement as a pathway toward greater harmony and connection the human brain is naturally wired to focus on. Negative more than the positive, a survival mechanism that once helped protect our ancestors from danger. However, in relationships, this negativity bias can quietly erode happiness and connection if left unchecked. A single hurtful comment or moment of tension can outweigh days of kindness unless couples intentionally nurture positivity. This is why creating joyful, grateful, and affectionate moments is essential for building a brain-healthy relationship. Positive experiences release neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which not only elevate mood but also strengthen the brain's memory circuits. When these positive emotions are repeatedly shared between partners, the brain begins to associate the relationship with safety, warmth, and reward, reinforcing emotional attachment and resilience. In contrast, constant negativity, criticism, or emotional neglect activates the stress response in the brain. The amygdala becomes overactive, producing anxiety and hypervigilance, while the hippocampus, which stores emotional memories, starts to retain more negative experiences than positive ones. Over time, this imbalance can make partners feel emotionally distant, even when love still exists. The key to reversing this pattern lies in consciously generating positive moments that help the brain rewire itself toward optimism and connection. Acts of appreciation, humor, and affection trigger oxytocin release, the bonding hormone that strengthens trust and calms the nervous system. Simple gestures like expressing gratitude, sharing laughter, or holding hands have measurable neurological effects, reducing cortisol and reinforcing a sense of partnership, building positivity in relationships doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It means balancing the emotional scales. For every negative interaction, the brain needs several positive ones to restore equilibrium. Research shows that couples who maintain a higher ratio of positive to negative interactions are more likely to stay connected and satisfied long term. This means making a habit of small daily gestures that communicate love and appreciation. A kind word in the morning, a message of encouragement during the day, or a gentle touch in moments of stress all signal to the brain that the relationship is safe and nurturing. Over time, these moments accumulate and form a protective buffer that helps both partners cope with challenges more effectively. Laughter also plays a powerful role in rewiring emotional memory. When two people laugh together, their brains release endorphins, which enhance bonding and dissolve tension. Shared humor builds resilience, making it easier to recover from conflict and disappointment. Even during difficult times, maintaining a lighthearted connection reminds the brain that joy still exists within the relationship. Similarly, expressing gratitude has a profound neurological impact. When you thank your partner sincerely, both brains release dopamine, reinforcing positive behavior and deepening the emotional bond. Gratitude shifts focus away from what's lacking toward what's meaningful, creating a mindset of appreciation rather than criticism. Positive experiences also enhance emotional recall. The hippocampus stores these memories and retrieves them during stressful moments, reminding the brain that love and safety still exist. This helps regulate emotional reactions and prevents minor conflicts from escalating. When couples take time to reflect on happy memories such as vacations, shared goals, or inside jokes, they strengthen the neural pathways linked to affection and security. These stored positive memories act as emotional anchors during times of tension, helping both partners reconnect to the feeling of love that brought them together in the first place. Practicing positivity requires consistency and mindfulness. It's about making daily choices that prioritize connection over complaint. Instead of focusing on flaws, focus on strengths. Instead of reacting with frustration, respond with curiosity. The brain adapts to whatever patterns it experiences most often. So when positivity becomes a habit, love begins to feel effortless. Over time, the relationship develops emotional immunity, an ability to withstand stress without losing closeness. This isn't about ignoring pain, but about creating enough joy to outweigh it. When couples fill their days with kindness, laughter, gratitude, and affection, their brains literally reshape themselves to expect love and safety. This neurological shift becomes the foundation of a deeply fulfilling, brain-healthy relationship where happiness isn't temporary. It's a way of life. A brain-healthy relationship thrives on growth, forgiveness, and the continuous renewal of emotional connection. Love cannot stay alive if it remains stagnant. It needs movement, curiosity, and mutual development. The human brain is designed for learning and adaptation, and when two people grow together mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, they strengthen not only their bond, but also their neural connections. Growth in a relationship means encouraging each other's dreams, embracing change, and supporting personal evolution without fear or jealousy. When both partners commit to becoming better versions of themselves, their brains release dopamine and serotonin, creating a sense of fulfillment and motivation. This growth-centered love transforms a relationship into a living system that continually refreshes itself with new energy and purpose. However, growth is not always easy. It requires patience, understanding, and emotional maturity. In any long-term relationship, mistakes, disappointments, and misunderstandings are inevitable. These moments can either create emotional walls or become opportunities for deeper connection, depending on how they are handled. This is where forgiveness becomes essential. The act of forgiving is not simply emotional, it's deeply neurological. Holding onto anger or resentment keeps the brain locked in a stress loop, constantly releasing cortisol, which harms the hippocampus and impairs emotional regulation. Over time, this chronic tension can create emotional fatigue and distance between partners. Forgiveness, on the other hand, releases that tension and helps the brain produce oxytocin, the hormone that fosters empathy, bonding, and emotional healing. When you forgive, you are not excusing the behavior. You are choosing peace over pain and freedom over bitterness. Forgiveness also repairs emotional trust. When both partners practice it sincerely, they rebuild the sense of safety that may have been damaged by conflict or disappointment. The brain learns that love can survive imperfection, which reduces fear and promotes vulnerability. This creates a more open emotional environment where both people feel safe expressing their needs and fears without judgment. Forgiveness reminds the brain that connection is stronger than conflict and that healing is possible even after emotional wounds. It's one of the most powerful acts of love because it replaces resentment with understanding and restores harmony to the relation. Ship's emotional rhythm, growth, and forgiveness work hand in hand. Growth allows individuals to learn from mistakes, while forgiveness gives them the grace to move forward. Together, they create resilience, the ability of the relationship to recover from challenges and emerge stronger. A couple that values growth celebrates change rather than fearing it. They adapt to life's transitions with teamwork and curiosity, whether it's navigating careers, parenthood, or aging. The brain thrives in environments where learning and renewal are constant, and relationships that encourage mutual development stimulate creativity, optimism, and mental health. Encouraging each other's ambitions, exploring new experiences together, and maintaining emotional openness keep the brain engaged and the bond alive. Another dimension of growth is emotional self-awareness. A brain-healthy relationship encourages introspection and honest communication. When partners take responsibility for their emotions and behaviors, the brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for empathy and decision making, stays active. This awareness helps prevent blame and promotes cooperation. Emotional maturity means recognizing that both partners are evolving individuals who need space to grow without losing connection. Supporting each other's independence strengthens trust because it shows respect for personal identity. A relationship that balances closeness with individuality allows both minds to flourish without feeling restricted. Ultimately, growth and forgiveness create a cycle of renewal that keeps love vibrant and the brain healthy. When two people choose to grow together, they continually refresh their connection, ensuring that it doesn't become dull or resentful. When they choose to forgive, they clear away emotional debris that would otherwise block intimacy. The brain responds to these choices by reinforcing pathways of calm, compassion, and joy. Over time, this neurological pattern becomes the foundation for lasting harmony. A brain that feels supported, understood, and free to evolve will always return to love. In this way, growth and forgiveness are not just emotional virtues, they are the brain's blueprint for lifelong connection and peace.